Hello, today I will show you how to set up SIP, voice over IP calling on your Nokia Symbian phone. And for this example, I will be using my beloved Nokia E66. I already published a video on how to do this using the Nokia E72, but this is a slightly older phone running Symbian 9.2, whereas the E72 is running 9.3, and it is actually slightly different. So if you are using a Symbian 9.2 phone, then follow this video instead. For all I do believe, it should also work with Symbian 9.1 phones, but I have not tested that, so cannot say for certain. So to begin, we will go into System, Settings, Connections. And from here, we will scroll down to SIP Settings. So you see I already have these because I set them up already, but you will go to Options, New SIP Profile, Standard Profile. So let's go ahead and show you what it'll look like in here. So go ahead and name the profile whatever you want. I use Zadarma as my service provider, and I do recommend them. For service profile here, just leave it to the default IETF. Now for the standard access point, if you have 3G, then go ahead and use the one that you connect to 3G with. If you do not have 3G, you will have to use Wi-Fi, which means you can just pick whichever Wi-Fi network you are usually connected to most often. So for the public username, you do not have to type the SIP colon. The phone does that for you. So you will put your 6-digit username given to you by Zadarma at sip.zadarma.com, unless you are using their virtual PBX, in which case you will add your extension number here with the dash at pbx.zadarma.com. If you want to know more about virtual PBX and the differences between that and just using plain normal SIP, you need to watch my video on the Nokia E72. So here for use compression, no. Registration, as needed. Use security, no. Proxy server, again, you do not have to type the SIP colon. You put PBX or SIP, depending on what you are using, .zadarma.com. Domain, PBX or SIP.zadarma.com. And this is slightly different from the other phones in which I just put zadarma.com for the domain. Here, it wasn't working until I actually put PBX for some obnoxious reason. Username, your 6-digit username, and again, if you're using PBX, go ahead and add your extension. Password you can find on your Zadarma online dashboard, under Settings, SIP, or under your PBX extensions. Enable loose routing, yes. Transport type, Zadarma will tell you to use UDP, do not. You should use TCP on Symbian. For port, if you were using UDP, you would use 5060, but since we are using TCP, the port is 5065. Now for the registration server, it's exactly the same as the proxy server. Oh, it looks like here I just put zadarma.com as the domain, so perhaps I was wrong a minute ago and you can put either one. So username, password, everything is going to be the same. Now, For this next part, you will need to have installed the advanced voice over IP settings, which you can find in the description of this video. Once you have installed that file, you may proceed, but please make sure you are installing the correct one. Do not install the one that you can find under the description of the E72 video because it will not work. You need to specifically install the one meant for this version of Symbian. Once you have installed that, you need to go into your programs, your installations, and then scroll down to wherever it is, and here it is, SIP Voice over IP settings. So in here you go, of course, to Voice over IP services, where you can make a new one with default profile, but of course I already have one made. So profile settings, you will keep most of the things here default. There are only a couple very small changes. So here you have allow voice over IP over WCDMA. WCDMA is just a fancy way of saying 3G. Most of you watching this video should leave it off because you can't use 3G anyway. 3G is already gone in most countries. Well, maybe not most, but certainly many countries have already completely gotten rid of 3G. If you still have 3G and you wish to use 3G for SIP, then turn this on. Otherwise, leave it off as it is by default, in which case you will have to use Wi-Fi. You will not be able to use a 2G connection for this. The only other bit you will change is right here. Ignoring domain part by default is off. Change it to numbers only, otherwise your call logs will look terrible. Now, for the codecs, you can leave them as they are. They're already sorted from best to worst quality. But if you're more concerned about data usage, then you can change them around. You can do some Googling and find which ones use which bit rates. Anyway, we're done with the setup for the most part. Now, we need to go to communication and then internet telephone. And then it will go ahead and search for available access points. So for some reason mine has been acting up lately and not connecting over 3G. I'll go ahead and try it just in case it wants to behave for us. But it was working fine up until, of course, I started getting ready for this video. So if you're just using 3G, you can choose your access point that you normally connect to the web with. Of course, will be different depending on your service provider. And then after a few seconds of connecting, it will just go ahead and be done. But as I mentioned, mine has been a bit ornery as of late and just doesn't want to connect. And it does not seem to be working. Do not know why, but what I do know is that it still works over Wi-Fi. So let me go ahead and choose this Wi-Fi network here that I already have saved. And that's just like that, connected with Zadarma. And it's asking if I want to save this network for quick access going forward. I'll just say yep. But that comes with a little note that I'll say in just a minute. So you're done, unless you want to change one more setting. Here, you can go ahead and change the registration type from manual to automatic if you want it to just always be logged into SIP, even when you reboot the phone. So I'm going to leave mine on manual. But regardless, one thing you should note is if you go back into your saved connections, if you put Wi-Fi networks in here and you are using it over 3G, the phone will constantly be searching for Wi-Fi at all times. which is annoying if you want to save your battery. So you can go in here and hit backspace on it, and it won't let me because it's connected. But you can go ahead and remove those if you are only wanting to use it over 3G. So you can see this little symbol. That means it's registered, it's connected. So let's go ahead and do a little demonstration. So I like to use AT&T as my test number just because it is, for some reason, a number I have really well memorized. So if I hit call, it will use my SIM card, my Vivacom SIM card, to call them. And that's a bad idea because it will be very expensive. So if I want to avoid paying for international charges, which is kind of the whole point of using SIP, I can go here to options, and then under call, I can hit the right arrow and select internet call. And just like that, it is calling using SIP.
Welcome to AT&T. Just so you know, calls are recorded for quality and the purposes stated in our privacy notice.
So, just like that, it works. And if you want to call somebody from your contacts using SIP, let's just go ahead and find AT&T's contact. And let's back out of that, sorry. If I just hit call, it'll use my SIM card, and we don't want that. So if I hit the right arrow on it, internet call is right there. Very easy. And also in your call history, just like that. Now, for some reason, it does not show the name of the contact if you used SIP to call them. But you can see that these were called via SIP and these were not. So if you already see the SIP symbol in your call history, you can just hit the green button on it and it'll automatically use SIP to call them again. Anyway, one thing I just realized I forgot to mention in the other videos I made of the E72 and the N8 is you can actually set SIP as your standard if you want to. And the way that you can do that on this phone is quite simple. In the internet phone menu, right here in the internet phone menu, yes, it's already connected, we know. If you go to settings right here, you can change it to where the default will be internet telephone. So now you can just dial a number and hit call, and it'll automatically use SIP. And that is exactly what you're going to want to do if you're using this phone without a SIM card and only want to use SIP. Especially those of you watching from countries that don't have 2G or 3G networks remaining, SIP is pretty much the only way you're going to make use of a Symbian phone. So, as I mentioned earlier, I already made a video showing how to do this on the Nokia E72, which is a much more detailed video in that I talk about the SIP and PBX services from Zadarma in more detail, and I just go further into pretty much what the whole point of this is. And if you want those details, I do not feel like repeating myself, so just go ahead and look at the video for the E72. If you have questions, by all means, ask in the comments. All right, have a nice day.